Hello, Michael here with another Renderman tutorial. This one got requested by many people. People want clouds and I'm here to give them to you. I'm going to be going through three different methods in three parts, showing you how to render clouds in a couple of different ways. The first tutorial is going to be this way. It's going to be progressively based rendering of clouds using Renderman Reyes, which is a renderer in Renderman that I don't use that often, but when I have used it, I've always been really impressed with what you can do with it. So it's worth learning this method even if you have a tendency to use RIS. I'm going to show you some things that you may not have done before with Renderman, and they're pretty cool. Next up, we're going to be looking at stylized clouds. I'm going to show you how to make a pretty quick and simple stylized cloud using ZBrush. You can use whatever 3D modeling software that you would normally use, but I use ZBrush and it's pretty quick to do something that looks like this. I'm going to show you how to quickly whip that out in part 2. And in part 3 we're going to be looking at a sky full of clouds using particle effects as well. So yeah, strap in because we're going to dive right into what I think is the hardest way of doing it with Renderman Reyes. So yeah, let's do this. Alright, so here we are in Maya with a fresh scene opened. I'm going to first go to Renderman up the top here and select Renderman Reyes as my renderer, because as I said earlier, RIS doesn't work with this particular method, but you should definitely check out Reyes if you haven't before. You can actually get some pretty cool stuff happening, as I'm about to show you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a particle emitter. So on the left hand side here, you want to scroll down to FX and then go to nParticles and create emitter. And we're just using the default settings to start off with. So just clicking it, so long as you've not played with it in the past, it should be the same. And then if we just hit play on the time slider there, you'll see you get this sort of thing, which does not look anything like clouds, which is fine because it's not meant to. So we're going to click this, and in the attribute editor we're going to scroll down to, well, the first thing we're going to do is just on the gradient here, I'm just going to get rid of that blue part because we don't need it. And then we're going to go to shading, and then we're going to, on the particle render type, we're going to select blobby surface, S/W. You don't want to select cloud, you want blobby surface. Sort of doesn't make sense, but just go with it. Trust me, I've done this before. We're going to set the opacity to 0.5. Otherwise, if you don't do that, your clouds sort of turn up looking black, which is no good, obviously. We're also going to go to particle size, and for this particular one, I know that 0.35 is a pretty good size. You can randomize the scale a little bit if you want. I might set that to like 0.3 or something like that. Collisions, make sure that collide is on. You'll understand why a little bit later in the tutorial. I'm going to show you a little trick with the cloud shaping. And that is it for now. So now we're going to move into Slim and start creating the, oh actually no, there is one more thing. So in the attribute editor, we want to go to attributes and we want to go to Renderman and add volume controls, because this is going to be a volume shaded particle. So if you click the RI volume primitive to enable that, that will allow us to apply the shading network to this particle. So this button here is your slim shader, not the wrapper. You can click that and it's going to bring up this guy here. The other way to get to it would be to go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Renderman Reyes, and then Slim. Works the same. And then there shouldn't be a palette there already, but for some reason there is. So you can just click New Palette. I'm just going to work on this one here and delete this one so it doesn't get confusing. So with this new palette, we're going to right click on the workspace, go to Ensembles and click Material Ensemble. Oh, sorry, no, we're going to click Traditional Ensemble. So with that active, we're now on the right hand side there, going to click the little blue ball next to surface and click connect, and then you're going to get this list here. And the first one says base volume, that's actually the one you want, and they'll connect it to that. So on the base volume node, under density, we're going to click the little cog there and click connect. And then we're going to type in spline, and you want the black and white spline, not the colored one. This is just RGB versus alpha, so we want the alpha one, and you'll see that you get a little graph like this. And we're going to add in a node by clicking on it, and we're going to move it with it selected. You can select any of the nodes. I'm going to select the one that I just created, and I'm going to move the selected position to 0.05, which is going to move it to there. And then we're going to also add in, we're going to control this a little bit further, but first we're going to add in a pattern on the spline. So scrolling back up next to pattern, you've got this little button here, click that and click connect. Then you want to type in SL box. If you type in SL, the first thing that comes up is an SL box, and this is also going to be an alpha instead of the colored one. And we're just going to type in a really easy line of code here. So it should come up looking like this. And we want to change, the result comes says result equals 1. We want to change that 1, delete that, and type volume field. All one word, capital V, capital F. And that's all you need to do in that one. So going back to the spline by clicking on it in our work area. And then we're going to click make sure that you've got that that node there selected, which is at the 0.05 position. And then with the selected value, you're going to click that cog, and we're going to click connect. And at this point, we're going to type in step, which is going to give us a step node, and you'll see it connect there. If for any reason you disconnect these by accident, I just want to point out you can also middle mouse click on any of these nodes, and then click on the left click on the desired target, and then plug it in however you like. But it's obviously connected, so we don't need to do that. So with the step node connected, we're going to move the softness up to 1.0. The threshold is going to be 0.04, and the mode is going to be smooth step. And when you do this, for some reason it starts doing a preview render for some reason. That's fine, I don't care. We're just going to click the stop button. You can't see it, it's off screen, but it did try to preview render. So if yours does that, that's normal, don't worry about it. And then on the step node, we're going to click the little cog next to the input and click connect. And this time we're going to make a Brownian. A Brownian is basically a 3D texture. Okay, so with the Brownian connected, we're going to change a couple of settings. So make sure you got it selected in the viewport in the workspace area. Base frequency is going to be 2, octaves is going to be 4, lacunarity is going to be 2, gain is going to be 0.7, rescale to off, and fourth dimension to 0. You don't want to mess with the fourth dimension, that's not even scientifically possible. Or is it? I don't know anything about sort of physics and stuff. All right, so now we want to connect. This is basically our settings just at a base value. So we're going to connect this to our particle effects now. We're going to go back down to the traditional node and just select it with a left click. And then on the outliner, which if you don't have open, you go to Windows, click outliner to bring it up. I generally have it open, so I can select all my tools and meshes and stuff. And then make sure you don't click the particle group, you want to click the particle shape, otherwise it won't connect correctly, and even then it can be a real pain. And then right click on your traditional and click attach. And now we can test that it's attached. The first thing you want to do is just quickly wiggle this around, because sometimes it doesn't update. And then we're going to select this again. And you can see it's attached by going back down to your extra Renderman attributes. And you'll see that the slim ensemble will be pointing to a string of code. And that's exactly what we've just created in the slim editor. So you know that's connected, and now we can do a quick render and have a look at what it looks like. So so you'll see that I actually haven't put any lights in this scene yet, because I'll show you what happens with a preview render with particle effects. So it takes a while to load. So the more lights you add in, the worse it's going to get. And also the IPR render is not that great a representation of what it actually is going to look like. Obviously you're getting a lot of noise, so it sort of gives you a fair indication, but it's not perfect. Also, I'm going to make sure that I change my image color space to sRGB. So you'll see it's quite dark, obviously, because there's no, it's not self-illuminating, and it's obviously got no lights on it. So so I'm going to pull the camera back so this renders a little bit quicker. And actually I want to change one thing with this particle shape, because I think that the particle, there we go, the radius can be a little bit more randomized. Let's change that to 0.5. And actually with the emitter I'm going to make it a little bit more dense, because it looks a little bit thin in the preview. So with the emitter tab, just click that, or you can click it on the attribute editor there to bring it up, and then you want to click rate and change that to 200 like I just did. And go back to the particle shape. We're going to have to rewind the tape and press play again, and it's just going to create a nice thick cloud, as you can see, of particles. So I'm going to pull the camera out, and now we're just going to do a final pass render. With it pulled out, you'll see that it will render a lot quicker, and it will look a lot less noisy. So final pass render is just this one here. So that basically rendered in like a second. So yeah, it's super quick. I might even zoom that in so we can see how long it takes to render zoomed in. So yeah, that was like 4 seconds. So, you know, that's super quick when you've got no lights on it. But obviously it kind of looks like garbage with no lights on it. You're obviously getting like the nice edge texture and stuff, but we're going to hot this one up by putting a light on it and getting it looking more like a cloud. So let's put an RMS Geo area light in. It's going to click W to move it. And then we're going to roll this guy over. Actually, we're going to turn him around this way first. And then we're going to move that, and then we're going to click W and move him back there-ish. And I'm going to make this light fairly hot, and change the exposure to 8. And actually I might even change the color just a fraction. So I'm just going to go to a yellow light, just make it a very, very high value yellow. Alright, and let's pull the camera out, because as soon as I put a light on it, I know that the render is going to take a little bit longer. So let's click render. Okay, so yeah, a little bit longer that time, 16 seconds to complete the render. You can see with that light behind it, it's actually casting shadows, and it's actually starting to look a lot, this is obviously very low resolution, sorry, but it's starting to look a lot more like a cloud. You can get that nice edge. Me personally, I think this edge looks a little bit too, like you can see it a bit too much. I'd like my cloud to be a little bit fluffier. And we can adjust this really easily just by going back into Slim and going to the spline. And we're going to add in another point just about here. So it's just going to make it so it's more transparent towards the edge, and then it boosts up in opacity towards the center and becomes completely opaque. And let's render that same shot again. All right, so yeah, you can see between the two, it's got a little bit more, it's a little bit more complex around the edges. Now you're seeing that light sort of filter through. So the light actually interacts really nicely with it. It casts shadows and it hits highlights obviously on the top there really nicely, and then the bottom starts to look darker because there's no light affecting it. But it still sort of just looks like a puff of smoke at the moment. And if that's what you're going for, great, but we can actually do some things to make this look more like a cloud. And to do that, earlier we enabled collisions on the particle shape. My heater is just turned on, by the way, so that's the background noise you're hearing, so don't worry about that. It's not a wind turbine firing up next door, bear with me. It's very cold in Melbourne in winter. So we're going to create a polygon primitive plane, and we're going to use this plane to shape the bottom of the cloud. Whenever I draw clouds, I've got a tendency to give them a pretty flat bottom. It's just personal preference, but when you look at clouds, you notice they've sort of got like a regular looking bottom to do with air pressure or something like that, which makes them sort of look evenish across the bottom. There's like a point in the sky where all the clouds are basically the same level. And you'll see this in a lot of stylized clouds that like the Simpsons opening, or even the clouds on the wallpaper in Toy Story. They've got that flat bottom, and I'm a really big fan of that. So we're going to make this a collider. So select the plane, and we're going to go to End Cloth, and we're going to click Create Passive Collider. So this just means that the cloud particles will now collide with it. And you're thinking, well, this is no good, Michael, because I don't want a big plane in my render. That's fine. You can hide this very easily just by hitting Control H with it selected. It will still collide with your particles. So if we click play again, you'll see it is definitely colliding with them. The emitter is a bit too close at the moment, which causes this effect, which is cool in its own way. It's to do with the way it collides, that whenever it's too close to a surface, it will force it backwards. So you can either move the emitter up or move the plane down. I'm just going to move the plane down just a fraction, rewind the tape and click play again. Alright, and it seems to be doing what we want. So you can see there, even with the plane invisible, it's creating like a bottom to the cloud. So you can get those beautiful sort of explosive looking clouds that you see and like lots of plein air painting, like the Hudson River Painters School of Painters do lots of these sorts of clouds. I should put one up here in the video. I'll try and remember to edit that in. You can see that sort of thing. So it's actually quite useful when you're doing these sorts of things to be using reference to get an idea of how you want your clouds to look. Because you're using an emitter, it can be a little bit random, but remember, because you've got something that you can collide it with, you can actually shape it a little bit more. And you can also change the length of time that it creates clouds for. So if I pull the slider down to 40 frames, you're going to get a much smaller cloud, but I want a big old cloud, so let's pull this back up to 100. And I'm actually going to move that up a fraction because I want that bottom to be a little bit flatter looking. Alright, I could go even a little bit higher. Yeah, that's cool. So we'll hide that, and then we'll try another render. Okay, so that's just completed rendering. That was a little bit long, 1 minute and 12 seconds. So comparing that to that, it's starting to look a lot more like a cloud. But there is one more thing that we can do at this stage to help these particles look a little bit more like a cloud, and that is affect it with wind, because obviously clouds get blown around in the sky by wind, so we want to add some wind force to it. So we're going to rewind the tape to the start on the slider, and we're going to add some local wind on the x-axis. So I've just given a positive value of 2, and I think that's going to be going the direction I want it to. It appears to be going this direction, so that is not the direction we want. It might be this one. Let's try that. No, that is up. Let's actually give that -1 though, just so I can keep it on the ground. Give that 2. Okay, so that is a cloud. Obviously it's got depth to it, which is what you want a cloud to have. It could maybe do to be a little bit skinnier or something like that, but you could stretch it out and do things like that as well. It's still going to render fine. You can get like let's do something crazy. Let's get a little bit squashed looking like this, and this is a little bit like that. It doesn't look like a cloud from every direction, but you don't really see clouds from every direction. Normally you see them in the sky, like quite far away, like this. So this could still be quite effective if you're just putting it as a background for your animation or your still or whatever. I'm going to move this a little bit closer. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. And I might even boost it up to 9 just so we get a little bit more light hitting across there. Move it there. Alright. Let's give that a good old-fashioned render. See how it looks. Alright, so that's starting to look a little bit more like a cloud you might see in the sky. We could probably play with the density a little bit more to get things to look at. It looks probably a little bit too dense around there, but it's got some nice sort of things happening on this right hand side. But that just gives you an idea of the ways you can control it really easily. I just did it with the transform just then. I'm just going to Control Z back to that being its normal size. And yeah, one other thing I'd just like to point out before I wrap this one up is if you get like a cloud emission that you're quite happy with the way it's being controlled by the wind and how much the radius size and stuff is, you can actually go to presets and save in particle preset and create a new one. Let's call this cloud_guy. and then I've got a new one. So I can create a new particle and then go to presets and select that. You'll see I've got cloud gen. I can replace this, and you can see that's what my cloud is going to look like. It's one I previously made. I've also got another setting, which is this rocket smoke, which is slightly different. As you can see, it appears like rocket smoke, which is something I've got happening for a project at the moment. So yeah, hopefully this tutorial has been useful for you guys. I know a lot of people have been asking about it. It's a little bit tricky if you've never used the renderer before. I know it can be a little bit unwieldy, and it's definitely particle effects are quite a beast to learn, and I'm no expert, but I do know how to do a few things. So hopefully this tutorial has been super useful to you. If you've liked it, please hit like. It helps other people see the video on YouTube, helps my channel a lot. And yeah, and also subscribe, because I do lots of these tutorials. If you haven't subscribed already, check out my channel. And yeah, otherwise make sure you add any comments if there's tutorials that you're interested in, there's something in Maya and Renderman that you don't know how to do and would like to know how to do, and you think that I might know how to do it, I'd be happy to try making a tutorial for you. So make sure you drop me a line, either a comment or just DM me through YouTube, and I'd be happy to give it a shot. But yeah, look out for part 2 coming soon, probably next week. We're going to be talking about more stylized clouds and building them with ZBrush, and then bringing them into Maya and setting them up to look like cool clouds. And then we'll have part 3 in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, thank you for watching, and happy rendering.